some stuff. Show us some code.
So this is in development, and I realize over here the developers have been working on validation. So you're going to see in this watch list repeated courses, and they're intentionally doing that because the validation isn't quite working yet, but you're really seeing what's in development here. So this is from our first milestone, and then the watch list from our second milestone. I'm just going to talk through this. What I mentioned before, one of the things that we would need to customize for or change a little bit for contribution would be this campus. This right now is hard-coded in, and we'd want to set it up so that an institution was able to just kind of say, we want campuses or not, and here's what they are, and then it would just appear here. So what we have is this drop-down menu would show dynamically. It would check, and we're waiting on this service to be set, but it would check which time schedules are actually published.
So just some terminology here. Our time schedule is the schedule of offering. I'll just translate it to Kuali speak. Course offerings versus going against the catalog, which would be your canonical courses. So hitting both sources here for the purposes of MyPlan.
So you can limit that to a quarter if you're looking for a specific thing, and then if you wanted to limit it to a particular campus, you could also do that. We have a couple of ways to be able to search, and so if I want to go in and type in English and I want to see 100 level courses, I timed out. Let me close that guy. Means I've been talking too much. All right, go find an English course, and we have a list of English 100 level courses. If I want to then look at what's available, I change my mind. I just want to see what's available in spring. I then can filter that down. We have these general education requirements at the University of Washington, and so if we wanted to limit those by particular, I just want to see ones that apply to the writing requirements. We've used the abbreviations here because our student base is pretty familiar with that. If I wanted to filter that by credits, these are both 5 credits. So I'll go in here and have a look. Got the course description coming through, and then this would display course requisites if there were some, and then just gives the students more details about those. This is what we refer to as our course details page, and as we get more data about the courses, if in the future we did have section level information, this is where this would be this would be the central place to find any information about a course. And some things that we're still going to be adding to this is, one, you could add a course to your plan from here. You can save a course to this watch list. We're going to change the phrase watch list. But anyway, so this is kind of the...
I like Jill says it's courses that can't fly.
It's a no-fly list. We got some funny reactions like watch list.
But that's like tagging courses as favorites, or like, oh, that looks interesting. I'm going to park that over here and maybe put it in my plan later.
Yeah. And so we're working on functionality which would give students a notification if one of the courses here was actually added to their, was available in a particular quarter. So I can, if I click here, this list over here will update. I get a little highlight, and then I can go see the full view of these items. And we've got some. There's actually quite a bit of data that's been added to this that's not showing here yet. But again, requirements, and you've got the ability to move it to the plan. You'll notice right now our labels are a little bit inconsistent. We've been doing some tests with students, so we've got a couple of different phrases, but that still needs to be ironed out.
Presumably move to plan doesn't do anything right now, right?
No, it doesn't, because there's no plan that exists yet. And if instead I just want to type in the word English, what we have this doing is searching the course title or the course name and the course description. I think this could be really helpful, even though we don't have these courses tagged yet with learning outcomes that it could be searching or keywords. Without having those tagged, this is a way for students to see how English could actually go across quite a few curriculum areas. So I think this is just kind of a neat way to expose the organization of the university to students.
And all this is KRAD, so you're really pushing on KRAD, right? And really driving a lot of...
Yeah,
that was a really leading question. Tell me, Jill. me about KRAD. But I think it's probably pretty important to note. I mean, this is some of the earliest adopters of actually trying to use, something in production, KRAD, and so yeah, a rather synergistic relationship, I imagine.
Yeah, they've been really great, and we found that we had some performance issues with this data table, and so they've moved that fix up, and it should be coming out here shortly with the 2.0 release. And then they really liked the facets, and so I think MyPlan and KRAD are working together to get these added into as a feature for that data table. There's some funky things that happen at the University of Washington where our course prefixes have spaces in them. And so this is classical archaeology. So whether a student knows that there's a space or doesn't think there's a space, they're able to get to those courses. And we've set it up so that if they type in a specific course code, that's going to come back, and we won't confuse them with other things. I'm going to think if there's anything else kind of to highlight here. I don't know that there is. So that's what we've got on our development server to date.
So just for a little context setting, this is really about finding courses either that we think are going to be, a student thinks are going to be offered based on catalog data, or knows are going to be offered based on time schedule data, and being able to understand what's being offered, what they might be interested in, what meets their requirements, obviously with a goal to actually eventually adding it to their plan, which is coming in which milestone?
That is coming in milestone 4.
Milestone 4. Okay.
So April 10th, we'll get started on the actual plan, that calendar view where you're adding courses to a particular quarter and getting those rules coming back and so on.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And probably something to mention is that this Find Course tool, we're already seeing how we're going to be able to reuse it so that if you want to do a browse on all courses that meet X requirement, so you do an audit, any of the, there might be a particular course set or an odd list of courses that any of these could meet the requirement, that we could then bring the student into this view again. So if they say, all right, that's great that these 30 courses apply, but I only want to take one that's 4 credits or less because I cannot handle a 5-credit course, or so that they're still able to filter those results and get to the appropriate course. And we realized that we'd like to be able to do some browsing, so if there's something that we're still kind of doing some tests on what are the types of browses that would be really helpful for our students, whether they're those general education requirements for a particular student, or if it's just come in here really easily and show me everything that's in the information school at the UW, or some things like that. So we're still trying to figure out what those criteria are, but the good news is that this could be reused and customized based on whatever criteria that you're able to grab from your data and then show those courses here. And then obviously going forward, having learning outcomes in place and being able to search learning outcomes and then link those learning outcomes to particular programs or to particular courses, I think is kind of exciting.
That's great audit stuff to show.
Yeah, and so I'm kind of doing something that is a little edgy.
Why we like to tell, edgy.
So this is a view of an audit that really hasn't been approved by anyone in any way, shape, or form. As far as we've gotten it, this has been about a week of work on thinking about what could we do, maybe 2 weeks, honestly, of work of what's feasible with where degree audit is at right now. There's a big piece that's UW specific, and I'm not sure where other universities fall into this, with how DARS or UAchieve gets set up. And just to describe that really quick, if you, whoa, let's not do that. When you enter a requirement into UAchieve, if you categorize that requirement, then you can group requirements by groups. I mean, that's redundant, but you can actually group those requirements. And how the University of Washington has them set up is that they are all essentially agnostic. They print out in a certain way based on the order that they were entered. And even though it looks like there are headers for our report, they aren't really headers. They're just non-text requirements that were ordered appropriately. So it'll say university requirements, and it'll have 3 requirements that come after it. But it's just how they're putting it into the system. And so that's been a little bit of a
So it's not codified in the system which are actually university requirements.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so if you do have a scenario where that, yeah, if they are codified, there's a lot more functionality that you can do. So what we're going to be doing is coming up with a plan for how we can do this now, but then also essentially making a presentation to our university about if you categorize these, here's what else is available, and we're really going to try to push and have that functionality ready. Does that make sense? Maybe not.
Yeah. Well, I think the bottom line is you can only work with what you've got.
Yeah.
You know, when you're trying to develop and implement at the same time, you don't have the luxury of saying, well, let's redo our whole way of entering dollars before we move ahead with MyPlan. So, yeah, you kind of have to go with what you got.
Yeah. So, again, this hasn't been approved. It hasn't been finalized. We're going to be doing some readability testing with students next Tuesday, and I would imagine quite a few of these things are going to change. But just to give you an idea of what we're planning on, you know, that if you've got the ability to go ahead and find the audit, we still need to figure out what this UI should look like. This is kind of a placeholder over here on the right. I want to run an audit. And then once you've run the audit, you'd see a list of here are some recent audits that you've just run and be able to pull those up. When you run an audit, it says it'll be approximately 1 to 5 minutes. I've never actually seen one of those take 5 minutes. We're really aiming for closer to 1, but this would show loading. And then as you come through here, what we're looking at is giving students the ability, this drop-down would essentially say, I just want to show unmet requirements. So you think of the scenario of the student of, I just need to know what I still need to do. You know, give me the to-do list of sorts. We'll be setting this up so that you can filter those out. And then each of these would expand and collapse so that this report could become a lot shorter if need be for kind of a quick view. Then there's actually going to go to the next page of this. Sorry. Come on. Sorry, I have a little performance. There we go. Oh boy. All right, so this shows, you know, a scenario where you've got a sub-requirement that has some courses listed specifically that you could take these, and then this would be the idea of you'd have a course pop over and I would want to add it to my plan from here or save it as a favorite to that list that we looked at before. And then we're also playing with this scenario where perhaps you're saying, I just want to see courses that fulfill this requirement, and you get them in this popover. And then the other idea would be, do you see this, and then you just immediately go to the course details page. And so from a user experience perspective, we're just trying to work through, is there a certain number of courses that would make that tiered approach appropriate? Do we always go with one approach? And so we're kind of working through that kind of stuff. But you'll notice these headers where it says other courses, and then up here, departmental requirements. Just again, to harp on the categorization piece, I'd love to just know that these are all departmental requirements. So you can kind of group these a little bit prettier, and then up top you could have more information in this summary view about what would be there. And probably something to emphasize here is this, the summary view, what I'm kind of highlighting here, is one of those things that we haven't reviewed yet with all of the people here at the UW who I'd really respect their opinion on it. So we're not doing anything with this at all until we have some more conversations with them. This is just so early and really just a brainstorm, but thing to share with the group. I think that's kind of what I've got, and then if there are questions with this, I'd be happy to answer those. Then we're going to kind of talk about contribution.
Right, we've got 2 minutes, so
sorry,
we've timed it well, so we don't have a lot of time to talk about contribution. So what would you
sum it up?
Yes, summarize.
Okay.